Welcome. I'm Maricela Kelaton with another episode of Scope. The Lukautim Pikinini Act 2015 is a legislation enacted in Papua New Guinea that aims to protect the rights and welfare of children in the country. This act focuses on safeguarding children from abuse, exploitation, neglect, and violence, as well as promoting their overall development and well-being. The Act establishes a legal framework for child protection by outlining the responsibilities and obligations of various stakeholders, including parents, guardians, communities, government agencies, and non-governmental organizations. It emphasizes the importance of collaboration between these entities to ensure effective implementation of child protection measures.
According to the Convention on the Rights of the Child, a child is a person between the ages of 0 to 18 years old. The LPA 2015 ushers in major change to respond to children in need of protection in PNG. Transformation of this magnitude requires a period during which it is empowered and championed at the highest level to secure necessary change to legislation, policy, programs, monitoring and resourcing across government partners under the Act if it is to achieve its objectives. The 2010 Child Protection System Capacity Analysis found that the present level of staffing and division of roles and responsibilities in the Office of Lukautim Pikinini is inadequate to meet the demands of an act such as the LPA, with far-reaching changes to be implemented in policy and programs and coordination and monitoring of a whole-of-government response. The LPA 2015 addresses these barriers by proposing the establishment of an independent Child and Family Services Office and Child and Family Services Councils at national, provincial and district level involving senior government officials from the police, health, magisterial services, education, community-based corrections, correctional services, labor and employment, village courts, NGOs, and faith-based organizations. This now paves the way for the engagement program to commence and pilot projects initiated within certain provinces. Madang is one of them. Deputy Director for the newly established National Office of Child and Family Services was recently in Madang with his team as part of the engagement program.
We are in the province actually to engage with the province to roll out what we call the 5 stages of the provincial engagement framework. Actually, this is the inception. We come engage with the province and see whether they are ready. And then we work with the province to establish the Provincial Child and Family Services Council. Then we look at the legal reform. If there is a need to actually create bylaws on the LPA. And then we work with the province to post province the sector plan for children. Posted, in this case, 5-year sector plan for children. Of course, we look at how they are going to implement and monitor.
The Provincial Lukautim Pikinini Act 5-tier phased approach on provincial engagement entails different components and activities, including inception awareness and consultations and readiness, and implementation framework and performance measurement development of monitoring tools and reporting. Otto Trull said the way forward for Madang Province is to consider child protection in a holistic and comprehensive system to have it incorporated and embedded as a life cycle. Approaches to leadership, coordination, and governance is required to bring in all relevant stakeholders to work together. Also, by having partnerships with relevant stakeholders is required to contribute at the different sectors and levels of service intervention. Furthermore, a high caliber of child protection workforce is required with appropriate resource allocation. For example, the minimum required qualification for a social worker must be a degree in social works or more. also having service provision considerations such as accessibility, funding for care plan, safety, friendly, and so forth. According to Mr. Trur, there is a provision in the Act under Section 24 that calls for the establishment of a Provincial Child and Family Services Council throughout the country. Seemingly, as he found out, many national agency directives on implementing offices or projects at the district level tend to get left behind in delivering vital services and lack functions due to officers not continuously liaising to bring about desirable outcomes. He does not want this project to follow suit. That is why they have come back to kickstart their 5-phase provincial engagement framework. In 1997, the social welfare services were 100% decentralized, with devolution of functions and powers to the provincial level after an amendment to the Organic Law in 1995. This move, as they found out, had a negative impact systematically on children, as there was a lag to implementing the LPA due to the absence of formal agreements or arrangements between the Community Development Office and the provincial government and administration.
In 1995, and by 1997, all community development functions were fully transferred to the province. So the national department doesn't have any control of what's happening down at the province, including our offices, community development offices. The recruitment, base, retention, training, promotion, they're all taken care of by the province. So over the years, we've encountered experiences where some of our officers in the field were not recruited probably on marriage, and they're probably taking time to deliver child protection services.
With the implementation of Provincial Engagement Framework, one of their main tasks now is to deal with the case management of skills gap within its child protection officers to be fully familiarized with the LPA so that they're able to effectively utilize it during cases encountered. To tackle the skills gap, the Office of Child and Family Services has entered into an agreement with the Somare Institute of Leadership and Governance, with assistance from UNICEF, to create a training module for CPOs throughout the country. The roles and functions of child protection officers is twofold, which is why training is crucial.
In the country, we only have one Provincial Child and Family Service Council, and that's in Enga Province. We established that in 2021, July. Milne Bay is now ready to have their council established. NCB and Central should follow suit. Milne Bay and I think West and of course Milne Bay. We were in the province to roll out the Provincial Engagement Framework. And one of those major outputs in the framework is the establishment of the Provincial Child and Family Services.
Scope continues after the break with a call to parents to better raise and nurture their children.
Current additional challenges experienced by the community development and social services are as follows. According to the handbook used at the Provincial Engagement Framework workshop hosted last month in Madang, as appalling as it may seem, there is minimal or nil budgetary support to child protection section of the Community Development Division. Functional grants, especially for children, is invisible, as community development competes or shares its 4% budget with another social sector. That being said, Trur said child protection is sidelined and widely marginalized, as children are not at the center of corporate and program planning, implementation, and performance measurement. Adding on to that fact, related function agencies work in isolation, as there is no children committee at sub-national government level to intervene and provide prevention responses and protection for children in need. The 5-tier framework is a very lengthy process to be taken on by Mr. Trur and his team. He said they have only grazed the tip of the iceberg. Within the framework itself are sub-stages of consultations and engagements, drafting policies and reviewing before they get approved by certain authorities to progress. As daunting as it may seem, some headway has already been accomplished. Enga is the first and only province to establish the provincial office. Mr. Trur said political will is what made it happen. Governor Peter Ipatas had requested for the Provincial Office of Child and Family Services to be set up. Madang, like other provinces, is a trailing prospect. Adding teeth to the Act and enforcing it is the National Child Protection Policy 2017 to 2027, which is an overarching guide to promote, protect and care for all children in Papua New Guinea, in line with other instruments as well. The outcomes of the policy are also aligned to the Sustainable Development Goals of 5.1, 5.2, 5.3 and 16.2, which all talk about keeping children safe from all forms of violence, abuse and exploitation, that children who have been abused receive services that enhance their recovery and well-being, and finally, children's family and community connections are preserved. According to the policy, PNG is the biggest and most populated Pacific Island nation with an estimated population of around 7.6 million, of which about 49% are children between the ages of 0 to 18 years old. This figure is expected to reach just over 10 million by 2030. During the last 10 years, strong growth in PNG's mining and resource sector has led to PNG becoming the 6th fastest growing economy in the world. Sustained economic growth has provided improved budgetary conditions in PNG. More investment, particularly in the areas of education and health, is increasingly contributing to improved service delivery for children and their families. At the same time, poverty, crime and growing social disparity continue to affect children. Investment in protection services remains extremely limited and access to services is poor. In light of the protection need of children in Papua New Guinea, there are 12 primary areas that the policy aims to protect. Children's exposure to violence in all these 12 key areas, there is limited study available and data captured and stored as output indicators from the community development sector, apart from the data collected by individual organizations. For example, there is no nationally representative data on violence against children in PNG. Small-scale studies consistently demonstrate that the safety, well-being and opportunities for the development of significant numbers of children in PNG are affected by exposure to high levels of violence in family, community and institutional settings. Available evidence from a domestic violence shelter, House Ruth, in Port Moresby, also showed that 60% of children who come to the shelter with their abused mothers had been abused as well. On the other hand, many more children grow up witnessing family and sexual violence and experiencing its negative effects. A 2001 UN study found that 75% of children grow up witnessing physical violence between family members. Parents are now urged to step up when it comes to raising and nurturing their children. These responsibilities encompass various aspects of a child's well-being, including physical, emotional, social, and educational development.
It's an abuse when you don't attend to your children's needs. It's an abuse, I'm mama and papa, broken married. Oh, mama, you're not sorry for me. Oh, papa, you know the future on me. Oh, mama, you're not sorry for me.
When we come back, Milne Bay steps up in its response to tourism and sustainable fisheries activities. Diving, island hopping, beautiful beaches and traditional festivals is the Milne Bay Province's main tourist attraction. Spread across 160 named islands and 500 cays and atolls, over 250,000 square kilometers of ocean, are over 200,000 Milne Bay locals. The people are the essence of the land, the culture and the beauty of the islands and seas of which they live, garden and fish, communities whose lives are dependent on living harmoniously with the environment. The government of Papua New Guinea, its key partners and state-owned enterprises in realizing the advantages of investing in sustainable fisheries activities and coastal communities, recently launched essential market infrastructure for Milne Bay Province. On July 6, Deputy Prime Minister John Rosso opened Papua New Guinea's first climate-proofing provincial wharf in Alotau, Milne Bay Province. At the event, Rosso said it was an honor to open the great infrastructure for the people. The state-of-the-art infrastructure is a pilot project built in partnership with the Milne Bay Provincial Government, Climate Change Development Authority and the Asian Development Bank at a cost of 36 million kina. Rosso stated that less rhetoric is needed and more needs to be done about climate change. He said the opening is an auspicious testimony of what the government is doing to address climate change throughout the country. The climate-proofing wharf is the first of its kind throughout the country that took at least 10 months to build. Whilst further away from the province's capital of Alotau, the Sala district was the first to launch a jetty and fish market supported fully by the National Fisheries Authority on June 30. Prime Minister James Marape launched these key infrastructures.
To now cut this ribbon, symbolizing it's open at this stage and the use of this, but more importantly, the progress to the next stage. Thank you very much. Congratulations, the Honorable Jimmy Maradina, congratulations, the Honorable Gordon Wesley, and congratulations to the board and management of the National Fisheries Authority. What a wonderful, wonderful partnership. Continue to fund programs in the district. We will continue to support continuous free education. We will continue to support giving subsidy for a better price for our cocoa, copra, vanilla, coffee. And I acknowledge National Fisheries Authority sitting here. We will continue to work with such key government agencies to ensure that when you're harvesting fish, there's a place to sell here and in Alotau and for us to combine and mobilize and export to sell outside. This is a work in progress for us. We are a government trying our absolute best, not just to educate and give essential services, but more importantly, we are trying our best to find means and ways for our people to raise money from their own land, from their own forest, from their own sea and river. That is what we are doing today. And I want to give encouragement to the people of Esala. You're not lost, but focus on fisheries, focus on agriculture, focus on tourism. These are sustainable revenue-raising areas where you people can have money in your pocket. That is why, as your government, we not just talk about education, health, law and order, infrastructure, but we also talk about growing economy and getting our people to come out and be a participant in the economy.
Future plans for a cold storage facility for Sala district was also announced.
Now that we have built the jetty, the next phase of development you would desire to see is the construction of the cold storage facility, where all the fish caught from Esala will be stored in those cold storage facilities. They will then be moved to the market in Alotau. The market in Alotau advancing in or progressing into acquiring their license. They're waiting for facility and storage license requirements. As soon as that is met and they meet, HACCP standards and any other standards, especially if we are exporting to China, we need to meet the GACC requirement. Once all those are met, then the license can then be submitted to board for approval. Only the board approves all licenses. So this is basically promoting, local participation, local content. Overall, we would like to see indigenous Papua New Guineans fully participate in this type of activities. Like PM said, once that is done, market is the government's business.
Meanwhile, 500,000 kina was presented to Alotau Market's administration. Alotau Market Acting Manager Sharon Maiseveni says the market has ventured into fishing products with 34 cooperatives have registered, signing contracts with the market to ship their products out of Milne Bay Province. A license from the National Fisheries Authority is needed for this endeavor.
Eventually, we can export when we have the quantity. We are waiting on NFA to give us the license to help us to export the products. But now we are, from the money that we're going to have, from the past, we have struggled so far to get the funding in order to complete our projects. But maybe from this 500,000 now as the recipient of the project or the recipient of the money, I'm very happy. We know that we will implement most of our pending projects that needs funding. And through this funding, we will know that we will venture into all these activities.
NFA Acting Managing Director Gisawa says the country's domestic market is well established.
We have already enough markets internally. We've got big market in the highlands where fish can go up to the highlands through lay, like PMS said. We have the mining out there. So the internal market is well established. But if there are excess products, it doesn't stop who allergy or whoever whatsoever, other allergies who have such facilities to export. Basically, this is what we want to encourage, the communities at large, especially within the island and coastal communities, participate meaningfully.
Gisawa on the Huhu Fishing Market license says it is now up to the Alotau provincial government to play their part in ensuring this license gets approval.
They have actually submitted an expression of interest for the license. They are working with audit and certification team to be able to provide the technical support so that they can be able to improve the current facilities to meet those standards. We will have audit and certification team to come in and do the inspection, work with them, and once they meet that, there will be a recommendation from audit and certification unit to say that they have actually qualified. In the interim, we have actually approved, given them a one-off export or sales of some of the fish that they have now, just to test the market. So we have given them that approval while waiting for the formal license to be issued.
And that's been another edition of Scope. Thank you for your company. Good night.